Welcome to the Alternative Dog Moms Podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom for more than 10 years. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I began raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott from the Believe in Dog podcast. For more than 10 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself. And I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned in case it could help you too. As the Alternative Dog Moms, Kimberly and I are bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and the brilliant people we're meeting along the way. Now let's get started. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Erin.
So, Neno. So I'm holding up my can of oysters and my jar of eggshellent calcium.
Nice! Yay!
Because Kimberly helped me realize that I have been correct in my assumption that because Neno is eating less than the recommended amount of the food that I feed him, he is in fact deficient in several nutrients. And Kimberly helped me verify that with Animal Diet Formulator, and we found that he is deficient in vitamin D and choline.
Yeah.
That's really interesting to me, given some of the weird health issues that he's had lately. And, like I said, he's got this weird bump on his eye that's been getting worse. And he's just had like some other weird things that I have been chalking up to him getting a little older. For instance, I've noticed he's had a little bit harder time with the warm weather when we go on walks. Like by the end of the walk, he's like really like trudging home. There is no pep left in his step. And now I'm wondering if all of this is actually because of nutrient deficiencies.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because it's so hard to really tell. I mean, we can do a hair mineral analysis test, but those will only give us pretty much the minerals. It's not going to give us everything. We'd have to do an expensive blood test to get everything that we need to know. And even then, it's a spot in time. And so a lot of it is just guesswork. And I know that when I came from the camp of, dogs don't, wild dogs aren't worried about balance. Wolves aren't worried about balance. It'll happen over time naturally. It'll be fine. And I still believe in balance over time. But I think that if you're feeding a deficient diet and whatever it's deficient in isn't available to the dog otherwise, you're not going to be able to balance it. It's not going to somehow, be fabricated out of air to be able to fit that hole that's missing. And I started taking balance a lot more seriously with my own health because a year ago I had a health scare where my blood pressure was so high that they were going to hospitalize me. And thankfully, I was able to get it back down. And the reason why it was so high is because I had sciatica pain that was so intense that it just threw my blood pressure through the roof. But then you start wondering, why am I having sciatica pain? And what's funny is that I thought that was a joke from like the old 70s movies. Whenever they would have some old person talking about their pain, they would always talk about their sciatica. I thought I didn't know it was a real thing until it's like, oh my gosh, this really hurts. But I started looking into what is going on in my body. And that's when I came across information about magnesium and vitamin D and found that, like, for instance, most I would say Americans, are deficient in vitamin D. I can't speak for the world, but probably a lot of people around the world, because we're inside all the time. We work inside. We're not spending a whole lot of time outdoors.
And we've been conditioned to slather ourselves in sunblock.
Yes, exactly.
Fair-skinned people.
Exactly. So, and then with there's that, and then it's like Black women are, because of the melanin in our skin, we're deficient. They said, I read somewhere that like 80 to 85% of Black women in America are deficient in vitamin D.
Wow.
And then magnesium, a lot of the symptoms people have, like depression, anxiety, joint pain, sleeplessness, crankiness, sugar cravings, a lot of these type of symptoms are an example of what will happen with a magnesium deficiency. And I started going down this rabbit hole of, oh, well, and as I went down this rabbit hole, I found that you can't just go and get a vitamin D pill. You actually have to get one that's combined with K3. And when it comes with magnesium, I think it might be calcium or no, vitamin C that you need it to work together. One or the other. I can't remember at the top of my. I think it's vitamin C, but I might be wrong. Um, but also, there are like 6 different types of magnesiums, and so
And
I
some of them, like, aren't as bioavailable.
exactly. Some of them address something completely different because there's ones that address digestion, and what you may be looking for is something completely different. And so you have to be able to understand what you're taking. And I know for myself, I do not do well with synthetic nutrients because I'm anemic. And for years, I took iron pills and they did nothing for me. I've been able to donate blood probably 3 times in my life because most of the times when I would go and they would test my blood, it was too low in iron for me to donate. And so when I switched from synthetic iron supplements to like grass fed organs, supplements, so they're freeze dried and put in capsules. That made a huge difference. I started with freeze dried spleen just to get my iron up, and then I switched it to liver, and now I'm just doing organs,
I've
and
taken them
that's what helps
before.
me. Yeah, and it made a huge difference, and it's funny because even Johan was like, I can tell when you're low in iron because my personality just kind of changed. I'm really low. I'm kind of on edge, all of that, and he'll even say, have you been taking your iron pills? And thankfully, I do take them religiously now. But because of those experiences, I started looking at balance in a different way, and with myself, I can articulate how I'm feeling, and then research what's going on and make appropriate changes, get on a phone if I need to, call a doctor. My dogs can't do that. I don't know that something's wrong until I actually start seeing the evidence that something's not right with my dogs. And many times, we spoke to Dr. Susan Rucker. It's too late to really make big swinging changes. And so it's so important to really be on top of that diet. And here you are feeding a commercially prepared diet. So we want to think that, oh, I don't have to worry about this anymore. But as you said, since you're dialing it back, you have to make adjustments to account for the fact that, he's not getting everything that he should because you've cut back on it. I've had to do the same thing with Zoe.
Yeah, I mean, he's been on this food for almost 2 years, and because of his low thyroid, he was picking up weight. He was on a thyroid pill, which helped him drop the weight, but we were still cutting the food back just to keep him, particularly as he's an older guy, we want him to be a little on the leaner side,
Mhm.
for mobility purposes and all these types of things. So, it's something that's been bouncing around in my head for a while. And I'm so thankful that you ran that report. And it basically said that he needs a large egg, 1 ounce of oysters, and a gram of the eggshell calcium powder to balance out his diet. So
Mhm.
I have now acquired all of these things. Of course, I have eggs all the time, but I was like, I hope that this will help my old man, feel a little better as he's getting older. And I think sometimes with the older guys, right, like we're worried about their weight gain.
Mhm.
Obese pets are so common. And, most conventional vets, I mean, I remember being told with my old gals, that whole thing about like, well, put like 3/4 of their food and then add a bunch of green beans.
Yes.
And then you start having all of these weird things with your dog, whether it's like lumps and bumps or like lower energy. And then you just attributed that to them getting old when it's like, oh no, I think there's rampant nutrient deficiency.
Yeah.
And, I was actually discussing this with, Kate, who owns the dog food store that I shop at near my office, and she was like, "Yeah, I bet, like, 90% of the dogs that come in here, like, they aren't getting exactly what's on the package." And
Yeah.
I had even brought this up, with her and was letting her know our experience, and she was like, "Oh, yeah, like, she has a Saint Bernard that's only maybe, like, a year and a half old," and she's like, you know, he doesn't need anywhere near what the amount you'd think for his size, or
Yeah.
otherwise he starts picking up weight. So, this is something that I think is gonna be really common
Oh, yeah.
for people to
And I
find
and
out.
I think it's hard because, I know that people get annoyed with a conversation of balance. I know I used to, and I try to explain it as what bothers me is when people use this topic in a fear-mongering practice. Sort of like, you can't possibly do it yourself. Your dog is gonna die. If you don't do this right here, let me help you. By the way, I charge this much for a consultation.
Right.
That's the thing that drives me absolutely bonkers. I mean, not that people shouldn't charge for their services. It's just the absolute pressure, especially when some diets are just fine. And an example of that, and I don't know if we talked about this last week, was someone on Reddit who was concerned that their
Yeah.
diet was deficient in iodine. The diet was fine.
Yeah. We did
And
talk
it's
about
just
that. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just but people will look at, you know, an example because everyone will put something in a comment saying, "This is what I feed," and people will jump on that and talk about how deficient it is, not knowing what they're talking about. I've had people do it to me where it's like, "Well, this diet doesn't have any, or doesn't have enough secreting organs." And it's like, that's not where the balance comes from. I mean, that helps with balance, but not everyone can source a variety of secreting organs. For some people, it's just going to be liver, and you can still build a balanced diet around that. But it's just like, but people are going by what they see in these raw feeding groups. And on one hand, I mean, social media is so important because were it not for social media, I wouldn't be feeding raw, or maybe I would, but I wouldn't have had the opportunity to learn because when I was new to raw, even though the information was out there, like Dr. Billinghurst's book was out there, Dr.
Yeah.
Tom Lonsdale's book was out there, Dr. Karen Becker's book was out there, and most likely Dr. Judy Morgan's books were out there. A lot of books were out there, but I was so green that I didn't know these people. I didn't know to look for these books. I looked at raw feeding the way I looked at kibble. Like, is there some place I could go get a bag and bring it home, thaw it out, and feed my dogs? That's what I thought it was. And it is in many cases, but it's the people that I was learning from were doing it themselves. And so I just believed them because they told me you don't have to worry about these things. And I've learned over the years that maybe they don't have to worry about it with their dogs. And they have been fortunate that their dogs have been fine with how they're feeding, with lots of variety and lots of whole prey. I feel like a lot of people who do whole prey, in my experience, a lot of people who have done whole prey raw, their dogs seem to do very well because they're feeding the whole animal versus someone like me who's only feeding parts. My dogs are missing out on the nutrients that they would get from the brain, the eyes, the fur or the feathers, and the various internal organs that I don't regularly feed. My dogs aren't getting that. So I need to make up for it in different ways. That's why when I share content on social media, I stick to what I'm doing for my dogs because it's not one size fits all.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating to me who I'm like, "I'll just buy something already made, that way I don't have to worry about it."
Yeah.
And then it's like, "Oh, no, actually, I do still have to worry about it." And, yeah, I mean, I at least say for Daisy Girl that she pretty much gets exactly what she's supposed to get per the packages, so I think we're alright there, but
Yeah. But it's always nice to know. It's always nice to check in. That's why I love having Animal Diet Formulator software because it's nice to do a check-in. Because for a long time, I did 80-10-10 in a base mix. And then I started wondering, is this right? And I randomly started adding oysters just because of a video that Rodney and Karen did where they added oysters. And I was like, ooh, maybe I should do that. That was my only logic. And this was years ago. So I started doing that. And I always added kelp because I just thought I should. But I never had any rhyme or reason behind what I did. And I was fortunate because it turned out that what I was doing was right. But when I redid everyone's recipes this year and found that nope, still deficient. And that's why I now add a blend of, raw sunflower seeds and organic hemp seeds as well. And it's one of those where I was close, I just wasn't quite there. And that was the big change that I made this year. But I'm still, taking a time of educating myself. In fact, someone else recently, and I just remembered that right now, someone sent me their recipe and I was supposed to run it through the software this weekend and I completely spaced. So I will do that today.
Well, and I guess with people who are doing commercial brands, a lot of times with her, I can switch around to different brands and to more different protein options. But with my old man, like he's always had just such a sensitive stomach. And it's like when something works for him, I try not to deviate a whole lot because
Mhm.
I don't wanna be up 3 times in the middle of the night because he's gotta vomit and eat grass or, these
Yeah.
kinds of things, and, um, that's been an ongoing thing with him for the whole 10 years that we've had him. He's, got this sensitive gut, and so, when you're feeding a lot of the same thing over time, I mean, I'm just like, "Oh god," like, he's been on this diet for a couple of years, and I do rotate proteins within that brand, and every once in a while, I'll try to if I see something else that catches my eye, I might try it, but, it's like it's really been primarily that, and because I just wanna keep him stable, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I'm just, yeah, that's a bad feeling, Like, you try so hard and, can always learn and do more and do better, and I'm certainly always open to that.
Yeah. It's not easy. And it's funny because it's like it's not raw feeding isn't complicated, but it kind of is. And I think it's one of those once you start going down the rabbit hole, it's the same thing for myself when I started making a point of eating healthier and realize how many things in the grocery store I could not eat.
Oh, yeah, it's all
It,
garbage, yeah.
yeah, it's just like, and that's when it starts like, and again, it's not complicated, but it's just sort of like, it's kind of annoying and
It takes discipline.
yeah, exactly, and it's like, I used to buy Captain Crunch to snack on, and I miss Captain Crunch, and I wanted some, like, the other day, and I was just like, "No," and, had to go and find something else to snack on, I was angrily eating, like, blueberries or something like that because it's like I wanted the chemicals.
Well, when my nephew was younger and my parents would go out of town or go away with just them and I would go up and stay with him, my treat to myself would always be Cocoa Krispies because they always had Cocoa Krispies up there. And, yeah, I mean, I haven't he's 17 now, so I don't need to stay with him overnight anymore, and I'm always like, "Man, I miss this Cocoa Krispies." And I don't want a whole box, I just want,
I
like, a
know,
bowl full.
I just want a little bit just to get that, 'cause my thing is I've limited my candy intake to gummy bears and, Kit Kats. I also sometimes really like a good Three Musketeers, but, I just I it's so or soda. I love soda.
Oh, geez. I let myself have 1 Coke Slurpee a year, and that's the only soda I get. I haven't had soda in, like, 15
Yeah,
years.
it's so bad for you.
I know,
I
it's
mean
awful.
it's just like there's just everything is just, so take some time to really think about what I'm eating, then I can take a little extra time. And I'm lucky because I have the resources. So I'm happy that I can help people when, people who reach out to me and they want me to test their recipe. It's nice to be able to do that and show them. But I've been really impressed. Like I even had someone send me, this was years ago when I first started using the PC version of the software is like after they updated it and made it really pretty and cool. Someone sent me a plant-based recipe because their dog had so many allergies. One of their dogs had so many allergies that they just could not source they couldn't afford like kangaroo and things like that. And their dog was just allergic to everything. And it was one of those, like, I've tried the free range. I've tried to source from local farms. I've tried everything, and their dog just wasn't doing well. So they finally, and it's funny because I was telling them, it's like, you don't have to explain yourself to me. I get it. I mean, it's, to me, plant-based diets for dogs are not species appropriate. I think it's a very rare instance when a dog is going to be on a plant-based diet. And that rare instance is the dog that's so completely inflamed that they just can't handle anything else. And so she came up with a diet and she wanted me to check it, and it was balanced.
Wow.
Yeah, she did a very good job of research and all that. And she was just like, I heard you had software and I just wanted to check. And she did. She did her homework, and she was feeding stock. I can't even remember what was in the diet. It was so long ago. But I was expecting it because when you run the diet, the screen that shows all the nutrients, everything that's deficient is in red. And I expected to see red across the board. And she did a really good job. So it is possible.
I would think my first thought would be raw milk diet, and I would reach
Yeah.
out to solutions if my dog couldn't eat proteins, but
I know that's what I mean, there's so many things you would do. She's not a member of the fresh food community, but that is something that I would definitely try, is just do that for a month, for 30 days, and
yeah,
see if that would, do a fast for 3 days and then do a raw milk diet for 30 days and see if that somehow resets the system.
yeah, that would be my thought anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, and speaking of this, so I was noticing that the Animal Diet Formulator compares it to the 2021 FEDIAF guidelines, and so this is not based on AFCO nutrients.
Mhm.
The report that you gave me, this is actually based on FEDIAF. I'm sure there's various debates about that, but I trust FEDIAF. But I saw that they just released a 2025 updated version. I'll put a link in the show notes if anybody's interested. What I really like about it, I mean, just God bless these people, because it's like they give every chart and every resource and every cross comparison. And, it just makes my nerdy little heart happy. But they actually give it in the back, like a list of like how this compares to every other previous version of
Mhm.
the FEDIAF guidelines that they've ever put out. So anyway, it's very minimal, I feel like, compared to the 2021. Like, they aren't updating a whole lot of things, but bless them for citing every little thing that they updated and citing to why they updated it.
Yeah. And now I'm curious to know if the ADF software has been updated itself. If not, I'm sure it'll be updated soon. I'll see
I'm sure
Dr.
it's very
Royal.
minimal updates.
Yeah, I'll see Dr. Royal and Dr. Recker next month at the Feed Real Summit. I'm
Ugh,
going.
I'm getting
um,
total FOMO about missing it this year, man.
It's a lot of fun. I'm actually excited because I'm involved in the event, and so I'm still going to do my moderating duties, but I'm also like helping with the happy hour plans. And
Oh,
so we had a
awesome.
meeting this morning with Nicole, and we came up with this really cool idea as an icebreaker for the happy hour. And the happy hour is going to be people who, like the CPCNs, and people who like either took the courses, or haven't taken it, like are in the process of taking it. It's basically that type of group of people. So I think that that's going to be really interesting.
Oh, that's really cool. And I saw Ruby's big announcement that the Wall Street Journal contacted
Yes.
her.
Yes. I'm, like, really interested in that because it's like I find it interesting because there's a push-pull in the world about fresh food where, I feel like would have thought that everyone would have accepted that this isn't a fad, like, a long time ago. But definitely when we started seeing commercials. So the Farmer's Dog had a Super Bowl ad a few years ago.
Yeah.
I saw Winpro Pet, which is a supplement, but they have commercials. I saw uh, I think it's Primal Pet has a commercial. So I'm seeing more. And then there's I want to call them, faux fresh food, like Sundays for dogs and things like that, where, and then of course Hills came out with their version of fresh food. But I would think that, you've got to understand that this is here. It's here to stay. It's not going away. And the more you push back, the more we distrust you. And I think, especially after COVID, I think the rampant distrust in the medical industry, both human, in the human medical industry, I think it's very much, you know, gone over to the veterinarian industry. And there wasn't a whole lot of trust there already, as so many people were going. I mean, the number of people who ask questions or, medical questions on social media is insane. But, I would think that at some point in time, someone would say, okay, well, I guess they're going to do this. Let's work with them.
Nope,
Um,
nope, 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 nope.
and, and it's
Not
just like,
unless we can make money off it.
exactly. It's just like, huh. Okay, so you're still going. So it was really exciting to see the news, and I hope that it's a fair and balanced um, article. I'm sure it will be. The person is apparently going to be there the entire weekend, just attending the event. So I'm really excited to see how it turns out, because I think that what Ruby has done is a very unique type of business model where, they wanted to start a raw food company, but when they looked into that, they're like, this isn't for us. And they went the
Yeah.
treat route. And they're basically taking things that may have just gone to the dump, and they're turning it into food, and they're getting it from reputable sources, and they're air drying it so it's still retaining more nutrients. And what I love is that my box comes, in fact, I opened it yesterday, I think, or I opened it recently. Some of them are sitting on the table around me. But, I get 3 chews, a heavy chew, a medium chew, and a light chew. And what's lovely about that is I have something for all of my dogs, because not all of my dogs will do the heavy chew. So I have something for all of my dogs. And then I have like a muscle meat, an organ meat, and a fish,
Yep.
which I can take real dog box and create an entire meal
Yeah.
out of what I get from them. And I've done it where, I'm between thawing or between meals, like I'm really low on food right now. Luckily, I'm picking up my order this evening, but I can use what I get from Real Dog Box to make a meal. And it's so generous that even with 4 dogs, I have in my garage where I have all the dog stuff, I have an organized system of, heavy chew, light chew, medium chew, seafood, organ meat, muscle meat. And it's all in there. So when I need to make a meal, I just go and pull everything that I need, because what I don't give to my dogs right away, it just gets organized away. And then if my dogs are definitely not going to eat something, because for some reason I ended up with a ton of cow ears, I just put a call out to say, anybody need cow ears? And someone will just stop by and pick them up. And that way I don't have to have too much.
Well, I love getting the meatballs from them because those are, like,
Hmm.
balanced, a mix of things. So, for instance, sometimes, especially with her, I will get a type of food and it'll come in, like, a 5-pound container, and I have to, like, goop it out into, 8 well, it's like it never works out because half of it ends up, like, in my sink or, it's, like, running
Hmm.
down my arm or, stuck in my glove or whatever. And so it's like they're never exactly right, and so I'm like, "Oh, well, I'll throw a couple, meatballs in to kinda balance everything out to make sure she's getting, enough food,"
Yeah.
or I'll, like, make one of them, like, the really light one, and then I'll, like, add, like, a bunch of meatballs in with that one or something,
Yeah.
I feel like, "Oh, those are so helpful to have on hand," and, I get the organ mix too, and, I like getting that, like, they just make it so easy to add that kinda stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah, if anybody wants to hear Ruby and Real Dog Box's origin story, I'll put a link in the show notes to
yeah,
both our Alternative Dog Moms episode and the Believe in Dog episode with her too, because I just think it's such a cool story.
it is. And especially, I mean, I think if you have an opportunity to visit their warehouse, it is you would love it.
I'm
I mean,
sure.
I was in heaven. I mean, everything is organized. I mean, and it's one of those things where every place you go, your little organization heart isn't like the boxes that are all stacked up and organized, and the system to do the boxes is like this really cool system. The drying rooms are all organized, and they have temperature controls, and it's managed through a software system that Turk created. And then when you go into the back offices, and they have this on the wall, like a big TV, like I think a 32-inch type TV size on the wall, color coded calendar
Oh,
that I know
oh,
that lets you know like what's coming out, when the next shipment's coming in. It's just, and they have a whole section that's the secret shop section, which was like that was like where I went to last, and I was just like, I want this and this and this and this and this. And it is so much fun. It's just a really cool. I think it should be part of the tour every year because it's just like, it is so much fun. It's just such a really, I'm a fan of colors. I'm the person with all the highlighters and Post-its. And so, I mean, it doesn't really take much to impress me, but if something's colorful, I'm just sort of like, you really must know what you're doing because look at all those colors.
Well, I have to say, I just hope that the Wall Street Journal article is a little more thorough and more well researched than one I saw in the New York Times recently that is basically talking about, they were calling it like the goopification of the pet industry. And it was, I don't know, like most, I don't know, like surface
Condesc-
level, you know.
Condescending and,
Yeah. And they're
so
like interviewing the head of the AVMA, the traditional vet, like that this is all dangerous and
I mean, and why not talk to a holistic vet or the AHVMA?
yeah.
I'm sure that in your if there was research, you know, you could have come across that. Just, why can't we just do, even if you don't believe in it? It's like when you write an article and it's clearly one-sided, it makes it seem like you have an agenda, like
Well, we
maybe.
did talk to this very bizarre looking woman sitting on the floor with a big vat of raw meat.
I know. And it looks like it's someone from like the middle of the world
Yeah.
that, and they're in a hut
Yeah, like
making
it's a very
food.
bizarre looking
I mean,
picture.
it does not look like someone who
We
lives
did
in
talk to
Brooklyn.
one person, one crazy cat lady in Brooklyn, Kimberly.
I mean, that's just like, it just makes it look like we're all like insane.
Yeah,
Where
that
it's
was
just,
that was what to me was coming across is like these people are insane and it's just to make money off of things and it's not proven and it's not regulated and people are just trying to save money and I just that was and it was the just most surface level like thing that I was just like, ugh,
yeah, it's
this passes as
aggravating.
journalism.
I know, it's aggravating because it's just like, who cares? I'm so over it. I mean, I shut down my Facebook page.
Yeah.
Yeah, I finally did it, and I'm in the process of shutting down Keep the Tail Wagging because I'm just kind of, I'm tired of trying to reach the world, I guess, and I just wanna have fun. And so
Fair enough.
I have my podcast with you. I have my newsletter, which I really enjoy, and I have Instagram. That is enough, and that is fun. But it's just sort of like you can't win for losing because, I had a conversation with the veterinarian a few weeks ago where he started it with, if because it was on my post where I was talking about how you can get, kind of like free food. And I had picked up organ meat, I had picked up chicken feet, and I picked up something, I think in salmon. I think that's or I feel like maybe it was salmon that was part of that post. But a veterinarian commented, and doing this will make your dog sick and the children in your home sick. And I asked him, can you please tell me how many children have been reported getting sick that live in a home where they feed a raw food diet. And of course, it's like people who they jump into your comments and they make these claims and then they don't answer you. They just dance around it because they don't have an answer. They're just repeating what they heard. And I feel like we live in a time where our critical thinking skills are absolutely gone. No one, everyone just basically repeats the talking points of whoever they follow. And when they break away from the pride and start speaking on their own, they probably quickly realized they have no idea what they're talking about. And so we went back and forth and he kept trying to get me in an aha moment. But I was just like, no, and I told him, I was like, you're in such a hurry to respond that you're not taking the time to read and think about what I'm saying to you. And
'Cause you couldn't
finally,
possibly know anything.
yeah, and what really got me was that he went political. So, like, and I'm just like, this has nothing to do with politics. And it's like, I'm sorry, but this is why we're not the same. It's like, because I create content because I care about dogs. I feed my dogs a raw food diet because I care about my dogs and I think it's right for my dogs. I was like, but you clearly are only here because you're mad at RFK Jr. That's your choice, but we're not the same.
That has nothing to do with anything
It's like,
we're
that's
talking
not
about.
my motivation, isn't to stick it to some politician. And it's just like, so
Yeah, in a random Instagram,
yeah,
about
exactly.
raw feed.
And it's just like I had another conversation I told you before we started recording it with another veterinarian where they made the claim that they work in an ER and they have seen far too many pets die from food poisoning because they were fed a raw food diet. So I asked, were they being fed a commercial raw diet? Because those type of claims confuse me. Because if this is really this rampant issue, I would think that, you know, when we see these recalls and stuff like that, they would come with evidence. But most of them, I have yet to see a recall come with a pet dying. I think there was, I mean, and it's not to say that it doesn't happen. I know that there was the question of Viva Raw. There's been a question with Darwin's Food. I think that there was a question with a beef. I can't remember the name of the brand.
Blue Ridge.
Blue Ridge, yes, thank you. Good for you. And so there have been instances of dogs dying, and they have, I would say, loosely tied it to the brand. And I'm not saying that it is or isn't. It's just one of those where, um, without paying for a necropsy, not always going to be able to definitively say that this is the case. It's just that they connected the dots, and it feels like this was a contributing factor was the diet. But for the most part, those recalls come with no dogs or no pets have been harmed or there's no reports of any pets getting sick. And so to then hear someone on Instagram say that they are seeing like all of these pets die from food poisoning, I want to know, what are they eating? Like,
And
is this?
believe me, if this was something that, like, the AVMA or somebody could capitalize on and use, get PR
Yes,
about, we'd be seeing it everywhere.
exactly. And so it's like, I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm calling BS on what you have to say. And when I asked twice, I asked, it's like, well, what are they feeding? And then I came back a few days later and said, I'd really like to know more about these dogs or these pets that are dying. And I I have trouble when veterinarians make these type of broad statements. It's okay for you to not be on board with raw feeding. I spoke with one vet years ago who said the reason why he's not comfortable with raw feeding is because he doesn't know enough to be able to advise his clients as they go down that journey. And another vet said, my clientele, I don't trust that they will do the homework that they need to do and that they'll take care of sourcing and stuff like that, and they'll make sure that it's a balanced diet. And he's like, I foresee them just going to the store, grabbing some ground beef and throwing it in a bowl and calling it good. And so he was just like, and so I've heard those type of pushbacks where, I have concerns. And so I'm not comfortable with it. But, if you can show me that you're going to actually take the time and learn how to do it appropriately, then, I'll support you as much as I can. But then there are the vets who absolutely don't support raw feeding, and they make up tales to prove why they're right. And I'm just sort of like, you completely lost all credibility with me because I think you're being dishonest. You know,
Oh, that reminds me of Susan Thixton's most recent article that came out this week that said 4 4% of cats with the avian flu ate raw.
How many people took their cats off of a raw food diet because they were afraid? How
And
many
this
people took their
wasn't the
dogs
cats
off of
that
a raw food
died, this
diet?
is diagnosed, like, so it's not even, like, pets that died, this is just diagnosed,
Yeah.
you know? 4% were eating a raw diet. It was on every frickin' news station,
Hmm.
everywhere, it was in all these
People were
news
fighting
articles.
at it. People were fighting about it on Facebook. People were, I mean, and it goes back to DCM as well. How many people stopped feeding raw because they felt that a raw food diet doesn't have grains in it, so their dog is going to get DCM? I mean, the more we learned, and the thing that frustrates me is that the average person doesn't know these things. I mean, there was an uptick in information when pet food came out, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know," but that's, died down years ago. And, the average person doesn't know. And with the beautiful thing about social media is that we can have these conversations and we can learn these things and we can spread this information. But also, we live in a time where no one can be wrong. And no one asks questions, they just make definitive statements and then they stand by that. So I've had people, like, when I did a post about rice, and I had a few people, "Good luck when your dog gets DCM." And, I responded to one saying, rice doesn't contain taurine, and enriched rice, has been stripped of all nutrients, and then some synthetic stuff has been thrown back in. And even brown rice, while it may be healthier than an enriched white rice, it still doesn't have taurine. So how exactly is that going to,
Because people don't even know what causes
you know,
DCM.
yeah, and it's just sort of like, instead of, thinking, "Oh, I didn't even think about that." It's just like double down, "Well, you're not a veterinarian and how dare you tell people not to feed right?" And it's just like, "But you're not a veterinarian either, and at least I have facts on my side. What are you talking about?" I mean, whereas I've had people reach out to me, someone reached out to me because Buffy has allergies. And so I've been going down that road. Fortunately, her allergies are very minor and very easy to manage. But someone reached out to me the other day because I said that, at night I massage her pads with, either coconut oil or the Soothe Salve by CBD Dog Health. And he told me, be careful about doing that because the oils can trap the moisture in, and that'll make if you have a yeast issue, that'll make it worse. And that was like, didn't even think about that. So make sure, don't do it like after I wipe her paws, make sure her paws are completely dry before I put any type of salve on them. And it's just sort of like, thank you. I didn't think about that. So of course. But it's like, for me to, if I were to just go, "Oh, what are you talking about?" Coconut oil is a natural antibacterial and antifungal. But yes, it is. But when you have a serious yeast issue, it's not strong enough. You need something stronger than coconut oil. But again, yeah, and these are the type of things that you learn when you're willing to be open and have the conversation and just listen. If someone has a ton of experience with allergies with their dogs, I definitely want to be quiet and listen to what they have to say, even though my dog doesn't have the same level. But, they have something to teach me. I'm going to shut up and listen.
By the way, I just want to mention that Dr. Connor Brady has a great product that is, I'm going to butcher the name of it. It starts with a P. It's like propithium, we'll call it. And there's an ear version, and there's like a paw soak version, and then there's kind of like a topical version, and that is very awesome for yeast, and it has helped Daisy Girl here very, very much when she's
Mhm.
had flares.
I'm going to see him next month, so I'm definitely going to pick some up.
Yes, please do if you have access to it, because it's hard to get here in the US. You have to order from him, and then it has to
Hmm.
come from overseas. And Dr. Judy Morgan, she stocks it in her store, but it's like almost always sold out.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
it's
he
very,
usually
very,
has
very
he has a
effective.
booth, and so that's probably the one of the first things I'm gonna do is when his booth is set up, if he has a booth. Hopefully he does. He did last year. I'm gonna go in.
Yeah, yeah, that's good stuff. I've used both the ear one and the topical one with her, and they both are very, very effective.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, did you want to talk about any of the trust issues?
Yeah, trust issues. Yeah. So you brought up the topic of trust issues, and I thought that I would, I was like, I don't like the fact that they don't support us feeding fresh food. And I thought that would be it. And then I started making a list.
So yeah,
And
I found this like graphic thing, and it says we didn't start out having medical system trust issues until we learned these facts. And it lists out 15 different facts. And one of the ones that really stood out to me, is Monsanto hid glyphosate Roundup's cancer risk. And, Purdue Pharma fueled the opioid crisis by claiming that OxyContin wasn't addictive. And Coca-Cola funded scientific studies to downplay the role of sugar in obesity, and cereal companies lobby to be the base of the food pyramid. All these different things that make people mistrust the current
yeah.
pharma, medical, big food industrial complex that we have. And so I was like, so what are our dog ones?
Ugh. Well, let's start with Seresto and the
Mm,
fact that it had so many complaints and it's still being sold. We're not talking about it. Um, or, the ingredients in shampoo. I know that Four Lager created a database so people can educate themselves about what goes into shampoo and just the ingredients that you don't need that goes into shampoo. I live in a heartworm negative state. Many vets here prescribe heartworm medicine when dogs do not need it here. The only dogs that may need it initially is when they're brought in, like Bella and Buffy had heartworm treatments because they came from a heartworm positive state. And once they were clear, then they will never get it again. It's the vaccines that no matter the size of your dog, the amount of vaccine is the same. So
yeah,
a Great Dane is getting the same vaccine as I don't know. I was
a
going to say
chihuahua.
okay, thank you. I was going to say a cockapoo, but I don't, is that a dog or a bird?
I think a cockapoo is a dog and a cockatoo is a
Okay.
bird.
So I was like, I know, I'm confused. Right. But there's that. And then of course the vaccinations, the fact that, I saw something where it talked about the number of vaccines that a child will get their first year. Or I don't know if it's their first year or their first 18 years. I can't remember, but it's like astronomical. And I
Compared to
feel
what
like
we got, yeah.
yeah, and I feel that we see the same thing happening with dogs where, anything to give a dog a vaccine. So I'm surprised that we're not vaccinating dogs from Lyme disease over here. I mean, but
Where
it's
they
just,
do here.
I mean, every few years they tried to, I mean, it does exist, the canine flu vaccine. There's that. There's all of these things. The fact that some veterinarians will vaccinate a sick dog,
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
and have no problem with that. The fact that they try to convince us that vaccine reactions aren't real. The spay and neuter situation
Oh,
where, unfortunately that's a troubling one because, you have so many people who are breeding dogs irresponsibly that you want to be able to shut that down. But on the flip side, what are we doing to our dogs by doing the early spay and neuters? There's
And
this
there
oh,
are, methods that can
yes.
preserve the hormones while still sterilizing them, and nobody will do them, and they're not being taught.
And it wasn't one veterinarian
Yeah, there's, like,
who
one woman who's, like, training all of
yeah.
the vets, yeah,
I mean,
on
it's
how
just
to
like
do
there
these other
and
procedures.
then, then we hear about studies, all the studies that come out that are anti anything or pro anything. But when you dive into the studies, you either find tons of errors, you learn that they were able to throw out, factors that didn't support what they wanted the end result to be. Those aren't scientific studies if you're controlling the outcome. But again, no one knows. And what really is bothering me is the number of people who are calling themselves holistic vets, but they are not holistic. Maybe they're maybe they're integrative,
Integrative, yeah.
but they're not holistic. And it's just sort of like I really think that um if you're going to push vaccines despite someone's hesitation. I mean, I think have a conversation, but don't push them if someone is, and please don't vaccinate a sick dog. If my dog is diagnosed with cancer, no, we're not doing vaccines today, and be okay with that. But yeah, and that's just the short list. I still have more. The
Well,
lack
I
of
mean, for me,
education.
the big one is, of course, the 2007 melamine recall that was killing dogs. Like, that was literally the first time ever in my life that I thought, "Oh, like, I shouldn't just do what give this food, like, I have to look into that." That was my very first, like, wake-up call because we were still so new to having dogs, and honestly, we were still so poor that I couldn't afford anything else at the time, you know? And, uh, and that, was the first time I started paying attention to these things, and then every other deadly recall, these
Yeah.
vitamin D overdose recalls. Susan Thixton had an article about that recently too that was really fascinating. I mean, Susan Thixton's entire website should make
Yes.
trust issues with what goes into our pets' foods, and like you said, all of those different flea tick products, those isoxaline class ones that are causing all the seizures and neurological issues.
Or the fact that they treat things with like medication, there's nothing wrong with prescription medication, and all prescription medication comes with side effects. But the thing about it is that it's supposed to be a temporary fix, that
Right.
they're using them as the
Long
solution.
term, like
And
Apoquel and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, and it's just like there are ways to get dogs off of these medications. I mean, Angela of CBD Dog Health has articles about, the
Yeah.
success she's had. And there are other people, Julianne Lee of Adored Beast Apothecary, same thing. And so, I mean, because I'm not I want my dog to be comfortable. I don't want my dog to be miserable. So if for instance, Buffy were a better example, Zoe. Zoe is almost 12 years old, and some days she overdoes it, and so she's limping. I do have prescription pain medication for her. She goes in every year to get her blood work, and she has a bottle of pain medication. I give her half of the dosage that's recommended, and the rest is natural. And I just basically adapt and adjust her meals with golden paste. And I added more omega-3 than what the bottle, as far as the dosage, is recommended. And that has helped tremendously. It's just that the natural things take time to kick in, and you have to be consistent with it. And in the meantime, I want to be able to give her pain medication. And the beauty is that she gets a pain pill like maybe every other month and a half of one. She doesn't need it all the time. And it's just kind of when she overdoes it. And that's it. But it's
Yeah.
just, let's have those why aren't we having those conversations? And for many people, if they try to have these conversations, the veterinarian, I know, I just think of my very first veterinarian. He would shut you down in a millisecond because he's the one with the degree. He's the one with the practice.
Yes,
He's the
same.
doctor.
Yes,
And
he's the one that called me a witch doctor. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
he had a
just like
great, bedside manner or whatever if
yeah,
you
there are a lot of
asked any
reasons
question of
to
him, which, by the way, if I had done what he said, it would have killed my dog, but whatever.
yeah. Well, and there and yeah, and speaking of my first veterinarian, the antibiotics that he kept prescribing to
Mm.
Rodrigo that absolutely destroyed his gut and his pancreas. Um, he just destroyed his system. And granted, I was able to work to build him back and get, 13 and a half years with him. But I wonder how long with Rodrigo would have lived if he'd never had all of those rounds of antibiotics. And I didn't know. I didn't know until I spoke to you about the different types of antibiotics. Like you should test and make sure you're giving an antibiotic that
Oh,
actually treats
especially for urine UTIs, yeah.
and so I have no idea. I don't remember what he was given at the time, but there's so many things and you don't we didn't talk about, rebuilding the gut back then. We didn't talk about none of it.
FMTs, well, yeah, that weren't a thing, yeah.
And so there are so many reasons why I distrust veterinarians. And one of the reasons is just the inability to take a step back and recognize that you're you may not realize it, but you're doing more harm than good. And back to the veterinarian that went all political on me. One thing that he said was that, people like me as an influencer, I'm the reason why his clients don't trust him because of the information that I put out there. And I was just like, no, 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 no. Your clients don't trust you because of a failure on your side. It has nothing to do with me because they don't know me.
Or a failure or your failure to question the paradigm.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's just sort of like if I was like, you need to sit down and have a talk with them and understand where they're coming from to understand why they don't trust you. Because all of the things that we just talked about, that's it. And if you're not willing to, if someone comes to you with a problem and you dismiss it, if someone comes with you with a question and you make them feel horrible for having asked it, then yeah, how can they possibly trust you? And just from my conversation with him, because he said that he prescribes his clients, if they do feed raw, he prescribes them, what is it? Anti-parasitic medication.
Oh, for the love of
And I'm like, "Well, what parasite? Where are they getting their food that there are parasites that you need to prescribe them anti-parasitic?" Because it's like, if they're getting and I said this, it's like, if they're getting commercial raw, it's human grade. And if they're buying their raw, like, from the grocery store, if they're buying the meat and stuff from the butcher or the grocery store, it's human grade. This is USDA meat. So where exactly are the
all
parasites
parasites.
coming from? And, I mean, the only parasite that I know in our food I would be worried about is Pacific salmon because there's a fluke in Pacific salmon that dies when you cook it. You can deep freeze it. People are like, well, freeze it for 24 hours. No, that doesn't work. You have to deep freeze it in order to kill it. But that doesn't mean your dog is safe because it also leaves behind bacteria that cannot be killed with freezing. So that's why when I get and I'm getting another one too, another load of salmon. So I have
Nice.
so much salmon. But that's why I either cook it or dehydrate it for my dogs. Not the same with Atlantic salmon, but Pacific salmon, I don't mess around with. But as far as, my dogs aren't eating wild meat. Um, so I'm not concerned about parasites. But the fact that someone says I feed raw and you immediately prescribe an anti-parasitic, I mean, that's why we don't trust you because that's not medicine. That's just insane.
Well, on this original list of human related medical trust issues, one of them is about Merck concealing deadly Vioxx heart attack risks. And I actually worked on some of those lawsuits in my career, in the early days of my career. And what I do professionally has certainly made me have trust issues about big corporations and about industry and question so many things. And I have joked to my boss, like, that this is why I have trust issues, like, with everything.
I mean, I mean, that's just it. Is like these people have they answer to shareholders.
Right.
They don't answer to the customers. They don't care about our pets. And I think that like the average employee of a company cares about our pets, but the choices that the company ends up making aren't in our pets' best interest at all. Because I think it's possible for these companies to make changes, but I don't think their shareholders would be happy with a few years of dipped income
Yeah.
because as they make the adjustment and shift, but I think it is possible.
And they pass it off onto the consumer anyway.
Yeah, ultimately.
So I wanted to give a shout out to a couple listeners that I heard from recently. So first is Rachel, and she has been dealing with so much stuff with her dog Kimberly. I actually am wondering if her dog has EPI.
Mm.
And her dog has such severe separation anxiety that, like, for years, her and her husband, like, juggle their schedule so that somebody's always home with their dog or with a family member, and then they're also dealing with all of these gut health problems, and, that I had suggested maybe they get tested for EPI because he was already showing certain things like low B12 and things like that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this girl has been dealing with so much," and she listens to our podcast, so, Rachel, hang in there. You're doing all the things, and then I also heard from a listener named Cheryl, and bless her, she raises guide dogs for the blind, and one of her own personal dogs has a cancer diagnosis, and she is again doing all the things, and she's actually been using mistletoe with her dog, and so she had reached out to let me know about that. And again, Cheryl is just doing all the things, and I know she listens to the podcast too. And so I just was like, oh my gosh, there's so many people out there who are just doing all the things and trying to give their dogs the best life. And I just, oh, we're with you guys.
I know, and we've gotten a lot of really I wouldn't say a lot. We've gotten a few really great fan mail emails, so I'm gonna post those on social media this week
Oh,
because
awesome.
it's so nice to have people, just appreciate what we're trying to do. I mean, this is something that just sort of came up just randomly in my head. Like, I would really like to do a podcast with a like-minded person, da 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 da. I did a call out, Erin answered, and we've been doing this is our fourth season
Yeah.
of doing this.
Like three
And
and a half years. Yeah.
oh, nice. But this one is can you guys do an interview with Emma Lou's Kitchen, Food for Dogs, or do a review of it? So maybe we need to look into
All
Emma
right.
Lou's Kitchen. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I'll look into it.
But, I it's been fun, and it's like the number of things that we've learned. I mean, I've had to stop buying everything that every time someone comes on that we interview, and then I'm immediately, like, in the background ordering something from the website. But, because of this podcast, I discovered Job, which, Zoe gets.
They had
Um
a great Labor Day deal. I just stocked up.
I got, a Myos, they just
I got
had a
some of them
sale,
too.
20%
Yep.
off, and there's what else is there? I mean, there's so many. There's I need to get some new ozone toothpaste for myself, and Buffy, I've been bathing my dogs in the ozone shampoo, but, there's just so many great companies out there, and I wanna say that, even though we're hard on veterinarians, I do appreciate the veterinarians that have basically gone away from the pack to forge their own path, and I think, Dr. Becker is one, Dr. Barbara Royal is one,
I mean,
God,
there's so many. I mean, just
yeah.
I was looking around at the HVMA conference and realizing that, everyone there had to make a decision of like, okay, there is more than what I just learned in veterinary school,
Yes.
and I have to go seek out other information because I this isn't cutting it,
Yeah.
I just have so much respect for that. So yeah, we're not hard on veterinarians. We're hard on people who aren't looking outside of the box because
Exactly.
the box is causing so many problems.
Exactly. I mean, I still can't get past, Dr. Margot Roman's story of,
Yeah.
putting up a euthanasian sign just so she can do acupuncture. And, these veterinarians who've just gone out of their way to give pets what they needed because they knew, and fighting the system who is trying to prevent them from doing that despite seeing the results. I mean, that's what just blows my mind is,
Yeah.
when I see, like, again, when I saw when Rodrigo, when he was so sick, and I spoke with someone whose dog had similar issues and they started feeding raw. I thought that was insane. Are you crazy? But I saw their dog and was just like, and nothing else was working, so I may as well give this a try. And I did, and here I am today. And the fact that, as a scientist, you wouldn't be fascinated by that. I mean, how many, discoveries were made by some accident and someone was like, oh, that's interesting. Let me look into this. But suddenly, same thing. I mean, and, just to not beat this horse anymore, but we've accepted that as humans, eating a diet of processed food on a regular basis is detrimental to our health and longevity. Why are we struggling with that same logic with our pets?
Yeah.
I
I mean,
don't
if
get it.
if the Wall Street Journal reporter that comes to feed real, like I hope that that's a takeaway. Like
Yeah.
that's the kind of takeaway that I would hope for.
Yeah, I hope so. Yay.
All
I
right,
think this is a
guys.
good episode.
100%. Talk to you soon.
Bye.